My name is Maris Calder, and I'm 38 years old. People at Stratosin used to call me the calm one, the kind of woman who could debug a compliance algorithm while the office was on fire. I thought that meant respect. Turns out, it only meant I didn't scare anyone. The morning it happened, my boss Ethan Rourke walked in with a folder so thick it looked heavy. He dropped it on my desk with the same care someone gives to throwing away a used napkin. "Hand over all your work," he said, his jaw tight with the pleasure of control. "You're fired. No explanation, no conversation, just the echo of those words hanging in the air between us." I looked at him, at the veins pulsing in his neck, at the coffee stain on his tie, and I realized he'd probably rehearsed this moment in front of a mirror. I didn't argue. I didn't even ask why. I just said, softly, "All right," and smiled. He blinked, almost offended by how little satisfaction he got from it. "HR will finish the paperwork," he muttered, already turning away. That smile, the one he thought was defeat, wasn't weakness. It was warning. 2 weeks later, in the bright conference hall we'd rented for the investor demo, the room was thick with the sound of anticipation. Ethan stood center stage, presenting my system as if he'd built it himself. Rows of screens glowed behind him, streaming real-time dashboards and progress charts. Cameras flashed. "Let's begin with a clean build," he said proudly, clicking the command. The room held its breath. Then, one by one, the screens dimmed to black. First the main display, then the mirrored feeds, until nothing but the hum of the projector filled the silence. The CTO leaned toward the CEO, voice barely audible. "Who the hell nuked our live build?" Gasps. Movement. Panic. I sat in the back row, hands folded in my lap. My smile hadn't changed. They still don't know the answer. But I do. And that was the day my silence finally spoke. The official reason was strategic realignment. That's what the email said, 3 sterile words delivered 10 minutes after Ethan threw my career on the table like an empty cup. He came by again before lunch, pretending to check on my progress. His reflection in the glass wall was almost comical, chin high, chest out, as if confidence could erase the smell of fear. "You'll have 2 weeks for transition," he said, voice smooth and careful. "We'll need full documentation of your modules, especially the compliance architecture." "My modules," I repeated, "the ones you presented this morning." He smiled, thin and satisfied. "It's not personal. Maris, you're great at groundwork, but the company needs new energy." I stared at the folder in my hands. I had written every line of that code, patched every leak that kept the company from drowning in federal penalties. "New energy," I said quietly. "You mean credit." He shifted, a flash of annoyance tightening his jaw. "I'm not debating this. HR already knows. Let's make this smooth." Yeah, HR arrived exactly 3 minutes later, as if on cue. Cynthia, the HR manager, smiled the way people do when they're paid to pretend kindness. "Maris, we're all so grateful for your contribution. You'll stay on the payroll during your transition period. Ethan will be the point of contact for handover." "Of course," I said. "That'll make things efficient." Ethan relaxed, mistaking calm for compliance. "Good. I knew you'd handle this professionally." He left with that victory strut people get when they think they've won something permanent. Cynthia lingered. "You okay?" "I'm fine," I said. "It's just work." When she left, I turned back to my screen. The repository list glowed like a map, every feature I'd built, every safeguard he didn't even know existed. My 2-week notice wasn't a punishment, it was a timer. I began marking what could vanish without breaking dependencies, what could stay and prove exactly what was mine. Outside the office, I could hear Ethan laughing on a call, already selling my system like it had his name on the commit history. He wanted full access. He'd get it, just not the way he imagined. Ethan stopped by my desk again the next morning, holding a coffee he didn't offer me. "Morning, Maris. Just checking in on those documentation updates," he said. Tone casual, but eyes sharp. "Already started," I replied. Perfect. Make sure the rollback protocols are simplified. We don't need all that clutter slowing the team down. Clutter, I repeated. He nodded. We'll trust our devs. No need to log every backup, it's redundant. I watched him walk away, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. The rollback logs he called clutter were the safety net, the very thing that kept us from destroying months of work with one bad deploy. I opened the admin console and took a quiet screenshot of the permissions table before he could touch it. Then, I printed a copy of Clause 19 from our compliance charter, the one that required dual approval for rollback deletion. His name wasn't on that clause. Mine was. I folded the page and slipped it into the back of my notebook. By noon, my inbox was full of his messages requests to rename repositories, delete archived builds, and clean up redundant files. I replied to each one with careful politeness, then copied them into a private folder marked Archive A. When the junior developer, Rena, stopped by with a nervous look, I kept my tone steady. He asked me to delete the audit logs, she whispered. Should I? Not yet, I said. Forward me the request. Then do nothing until I confirm. Rena nodded. Relieved. She didn't need to know why. That afternoon, I documented every step he took, every commit, every change request, every missing signature. I wasn't protecting the company anymore. I was protecting proof. When I left that evening, the office lights glared off the glass walls, bright and empty. Ethan's voice echoed from a meeting room, promising the executive team a cleaner, faster system. I smiled faintly, closing my laptop. Clean could mean a lot of things. Mine would be spotless on paper. By the third day of my transition period, Ethan had already renamed half the repositories. He called it modernization. I called it vandalism. That afternoon, I opened the deployment map to audit what he'd changed. Most of his edits were sloppy paths mislabeled, redundancies left hanging, but one thing made me stop cold. The clean build command, a script I'd written years ago to reset the staging environment, now pointed directly to the live production cluster. I stared at the line of code as if it might rewrite itself. One click during a presentation and the entire system clients, contracts, and 4 years of work would vanish. Ethan's voice floated over the partition wall. We're on schedule. People, investors love a clean launch. I turned, met Rena's anxious glance across the aisle, and forced a steady smile. You're doing fine, I said, though my heart felt like static. When Ethan finally wandered by, I kept my tone light. Quick question, I said. Why did you move the clean build route? He frowned. Defensive already. Simplifies the process. One button, one result. Makes me look decisive in demos. It's wired to production, I said. He shrugged. We'll be careful. Careful isn't a rollback strategy. He gave a short laugh. Maris, you worry too much. We're innovating, not babysitting. I need you to focus on the handover notes, not on my design choices. I watched him leave, his reflection shrinking in the glass until it was just a blur for a long time. I sat still, staring at the blinking cursor beside that fatal command. I could fix it. I could save him from his own ignorance. But then I remembered the folder hitting my desk, his voice saying, "You're fired," and the smile that followed. I closed the console without saving. That night, I backed up every log, every script, every signature that proved what he'd done. Then I printed the deployment diff and slipped it into my notebook, right beside Clause 19. The system was still standing, but I could already feel the crack beneath it, thin, spreading, inevitable. The office emptied earlier each night, but I stayed. The glow of my monitor was the only light left, steady and silent. That steadiness became its own kind of comfort. By midnight, I was logged into the forgotten testing server we'd used years ago during the GDPR trials, an old node buried under obsolete labels, ignored by every audit since. No one would think to look there. Mirror 01, I whispered as I renamed the environment. My hands didn't shake this time. I cloned the last stable build, the real system, the one untouched by Ethan's shortcuts, and began sealing it away, line by line, script by script. I restored the version I trusted. Then I encrypted the folder with a key sequence only I knew, embedding timestamps in triplicate and adding a checksum trap that would trigger if anyone tried to forge access. At 2 in the morning, Rena's message appeared on Slack. "Still here. Just wrapping up," I typed. She replied with a sleepy emoji and logged off. She didn't need to know that wrapping up meant building an arc. When I finished, I ran the checksum once more. Clean, verified. The logs recorded every action in real time, unbroken, unedited. I uploaded a decoy build beside it, sloppy enough to pass as the last working copy if anyone came sniffing. The hum of the air vents was the only sound as I closed my laptop. For the first time in weeks, I felt something close to peace. This wasn't revenge, not yet. It was preservation, a safeguard against the disaster already taking shape. Ethan could rename files, reroute commands, boast about innovation. But when his new system collapsed, this mirror would stand untouched, a record of truth. Before leaving, I slipped a handwritten label inside my notebook, Mirror 01, stable, verified integrity. Then I turned off the monitor. The blue light faded from the screen, leaving only my reflection steady, quiet, and finally certain of what needed to come next. By the following Monday, Ethan was treating the project like a stage play. He'd walk into meetings 5 minutes late, sleeves rolled, grin sharp enough to draw blood. "We're going to stun the investors," he told the team. "Cleaner, faster, smarter. They'll see what real leadership looks like." I kept typing notes, expression neutral. Every boast went into my private archive, the promises, the reckless deadlines, the deleted safeguards. During one of the sync calls, Marcus Lung, our CTO, finally spoke up. His voice was calm but heavy. "Ethan, I noticed the rollback checkpoints are missing from the latest deployment." Ethan laughed. "That's old school thinking. Marcus, the new build doesn't need crutches." Marcus's silence said more than argument could. Then, quietly, he looked at me through the screen. "Maris, you still have access to the logs, right?" I nodded. "For now, stay close to them," he said, his eyes flicking back to Ethan. "Just in case." Ethan waved a hand. "In case of what doubt, we don't need paranoia slowing us down." Marcus muted himself, and I saw his head drop into his hand. After the meeting, I passed him in the hallway. "You shouldn't take the fall for him," I said. He gave a short, tired laugh. "You think Greg, the CEO, would listen? He sees Ethan as his next-generation prodigy. I'm just the old guy trying to make sense of the mess." He paused. "Whatever you're doing, keep your bases covered. I always do." That night, Ethan gathered a few engineers for a vision session. He stood by the whiteboard, drawing loops and arrows that meant nothing, chanting words like synergy and disruption. The others nodded because it was easier than disagreeing. I watched him, quiet, unseen. Every decision he made was a match scraping against the fuse I'd already seen laid across the floor. I wasn't pushing it closer to the fire. I was just watching gravity pull the flame where it was always meant to go. The morning of the investor demo felt too bright. Everyone moved faster, voices high with caffeine and nerves. I stayed near the back, a quiet shadow with my badge still active for one last day. Ethan strutted across the stage, suit pressed, hair slick, voice smooth as glass. "Today," he said into the microphone, "Stratison redefines compliance for a new generation." The crowd of investors leaned forward. Cameras were already rolling. Marcus stood off to the side, arms folded, his expression unreadable. The CEO, Greg Talbot, smiled from the front row like a proud father. Ethan gestured to the glowing wall of screens behind him. "Let's show them what clean architecture looks like." He clicked his remote. "Initiate clean build." A soft chime echoed through the room. The screens froze, then blinked. The first went dark, then another, and another. By the 6th blackout, the air changed, chairs creaked, Phones lifted, recording the silence. The hum of the projector faltered and died. Ethan laughed, thin and nervous. Just a minor refresh, give it a second. Nothing. Greg shifted in his seat. Marcus moved closer to the console, typing fast, his face drained of color. He leaned toward Greg and whispered, "Who the hell nuked our live build?" Someone in the audience muttered. "Is this part of the demo?" Ethan's laugh cracked. "There's a temporary sync issue. A network thing," Marcus snapped. "You deleted the rollback environment. What? No. I ran the command U." "Your command pointed to production." Marcus barked. "You just wiped the active cluster." The investors began murmuring. One of them stood up and quietly walked out. Another started filming the error screens still flickering on laptops. Greg turned to Ethan, voice low and sharp. "Fix it." Ethan's hands shook over the keyboard. "It's not responding." From the back row, I watched the chaos unfold, the panic, the disbelief, the sinking realization spreading across their faces. I didn't move, didn't speak. The silence I'd carried for 2 weeks finally had a voice, and it was louder than anything I could have said. The demo room emptied in waves, investors first, then the interns who didn't want to be seen watching a disaster. Within 20 minutes, only executives and the core tech team remained. The silence after humiliation is a strange thing. It hums like static. Ethan hovered near the console, pale and sweating. "It wasn't me," he kept saying. "Someone must have tampered with the deployment path." Marcus was already typing, pulling up the system logs. His jaw flexed, a quiet rhythm of disbelief. "There's no tampering," he said. "Everything's authenticated." Greg, the CEO, leaned over his shoulder. "Then, who triggered it?" Marcus pointed at the screen. "Right there. User Ethan Rourke. Access level elevated. Command executed at 11:43 a.m. Ethan stepped forward. "That's impossible. I don't even have that level anymore." "Maris did. She must have left something behind." Greg's gaze snapped toward me. "Maris." I stayed seated, hands folded. "Check the authorization signature." Marcus scrolled. His face changed. "This hash is off. Someone forged Maris's digital ID." The words hung in the air like a verdict. Ethan's throat worked, but no sound came out. "Forging credentials," Marcus said softly, "is a federal offense." Greg straightened, his voice thin. "Ethan, tell me you didn't." Ethan stammered. "I was trying to simplify the enough." Greg snapped. He turned to Marcus. "Lock him out, now." Marcus nodded, fingers moving fast. Access revoked. I opened my laptop, calm as if checking the weather. My email to the board was already drafted. Audit trail attached. Time-stamped evidence. Mirror location encrypted. Ownership intact. I hit send. Across the room, Ethan sagged into a chair, staring at the black monitors. Greg rubbed his temples, the weight of ruined millions visible in the tremor of his hand. Marcus glanced at me, a question in his eyes. I met it with a quiet nod. I wasn't angry anymore. Anger had limits. Proof didn't. The board assembled within the hour. The room smelled of burnt nerves and stale coffee. Greg stood at the head of the table, tie loosened, voice stripped of authority. "Maris," he said, "the investors are threatening to pull. We need that system back online immediately." Ethan sat 2 chairs down, staring at the table. Security stood behind him, silent and waiting. "I can restore it," I said, my voice even. "But the code you're asking for is under a separate non-disclosure agreement from the pilot phase. That makes it mine." Greg blinked. "Yours?" "Yes," I said. "The recovery layer logic was written off contract during GDPR compliance testing. It was never transferred. Your lawyers can confirm." He turned to Sandra, the company counsel, who was already scrolling through her tablet. Her eyes widened slightly. "She's right. The ownership clause predates Ethan's promotion. It's in her name." The silence that followed was almost respectful. Greg leaned forward. "Then we'll buy it. Name your price. I shook my head. You won't buy it. You'll lease it. For a fixed term, with quarterly renewals. Under my terms. Ethan looked up finally. Voice thin. You're blackmailing us. I met his eyes. I'm protecting my work. You forged my ID and destroyed a live build. I'm just setting conditions for repair. Greg exhaled slowly. Defeated. What terms? I oversee the redeployment remotely, I said. You credit my authorship on all investor materials, and Ethan Rourke is never involved in anything I touch again. Greg turned toward security. Escort him out. Ethan stood, face gray. He didn't speak this time. The door shut behind him with a sound that felt final. Greg rubbed his forehead. You'll send the bill tonight when the lease agreement is signed. Sandra nodded. I'll draft it now. I gathered my notebook, the one that held Clause 19 and the deployment diff. Good, I said, standing. Because every hour of downtime costs more than you think. Greg looked at me tired, humbled. Maris. Thank you. I paused at the door. Don't thank me. Just pay the invoice. By morning, the agreement was signed. Legal had moved fast. Fear always speeds up paperwork. I walked into the boardroom one last time, the air heavy with the aftertaste of too many late-night decisions. Greg stood as I entered. Is it ready? I placed a small encrypted drive on the table. A white label in my handwriting read, Stable Build, Verified. He reached for it like it was oxygen. We'll deploy immediately. I stopped him with a quiet hand. Wait for the credentials I send. Without them, that drive is just a decoration. Sandra, the counsel, nodded briskly. Understood. Funds will be wired as per the lease terms. I opened my notebook, removed a folded piece of paper, and left it beside the drive. That's for you, I said. Greg glanced down. The note was only one line. Next time, verify before firing the architect. His expression flickered between shame and relief. You could have destroyed us, he said. I didn't need to. I replied, you handled that part yourselves. For a moment, no one spoke. The hum of the server racks down the hall filled the silence like a heartbeat. Greg exhaled and nodded. Whatever you do next. Maris, good luck. I smiled, not unkindly. Luck had nothing to do with it. I left my badge on the reception desk. The security guard, half asleep, gave a small nod as I passed. The glass doors opened and Austin's morning heat rolled over me dry, bright, honest. Across the street, a car idled. Marcus leaned against it, holding 2 coffees. Figured you'd be done by now, he said. I took one, the first sip bitter and grounding. They'll recover, I said. Eventually, still the calm one, he murmured. Calm works, I said. So does documentation. He laughed softly as I walked toward my car. The city was already waking horns. Sunlight, possibility. My phone buzzed an email from a new firm. Subject line offer extended. I didn't rush to open it. For the first time in months, I let the quiet stay. It sounded like peace.